I was 32 when this happened. I was living in upstate New York, commuting far more than I should have for a consulting job that paid well but never felt secure. My parents lived in Albany. My girlfriend at the time was outside Boston. Depending on the week, I bounced between both cities. Flying was expensive and unreliable in winter, so I took the overnight Amtrak more often than I'd like to admit. It was cheaper, quieter, and, at least on paper, safe. This was late November, just after Thanksgiving. I'd spent the holiday with my parents and was heading east on a night train that left Albany just before midnight and arrived in Boston early the next morning. I remember feeling exhausted in that hollow, overstimulated way you get after family gatherings. Too much food, too many conversations, not enough sleep. The platform was cold and mostly empty. A few college students with headphones. An older couple whispering to each other. One man in a work jacket pacing while staring at his phone. I boarded early, found a seat near the back of the car, and settled in. The lights were dimmed to that soft amber glow trains use at night. Someone 2 rows ahead was already asleep, mouth open, jacket pulled over their face. Everything felt normal, boring even. That was the appeal. About 40 minutes into the ride, after we'd cleared the outskirts of Albany and were moving long stretches of dark forest, I noticed the man across the aisle. I can't tell you exactly why he stood out at first. He was average looking, late 40s maybe, wearing jeans and a gray hoodie. No luggage that I could see. He wasn't doing anything obviously strange. He just didn't settle. Everyone else shifted, slept, read. He stayed upright, hands resting on his knees, eyes open, staring forward like he was waiting for something only he could hear. Every so often he'd turn his head slightly, just enough to scan the aisle. When our eyes met once, he didn't look away. He held the gaze a second too long, then slowly faced forward again. My stomach tightened, but I told myself I was being ridiculous. Overnight, trains mess with your head. Shadows move. You project things. An hour passed. The car was nearly silent except for the low hum of the tracks and the occasional rattle. I drifted in and out of sleep. Each time I woke, the man was still there. Same position, same posture, still watching. Sometime around 2 a.m, I realized I needed to use the bathroom. I waited, hoping the feeling would pass because the idea of walking past him didn't sit right with me. When it didn't, I stood and stepped into the aisle. As I passed his seat, he spoke quietly without turning his head. "You shouldn't walk around at night on these trains." I stopped. "What?" He turned then and smiled. It wasn't threatening. It was calm. Too calm. "Things happen," he said. "People don't hear." I didn't respond. I just kept walking. My heart was pounding hard enough that I could feel it in my throat. Inside the bathroom, with the door locked, I stood there longer than necessary, listening. The train kept moving. No footsteps. No voices. When I came back, he was gone. His seat was empty. No jacket, no bag. Just a faint indentation in the cushion where he'd been sitting. I stood there for a moment, confused, then sat down quickly, telling myself he'd moved to another car or gone to the cafe. Still, I didn't sleep after that. I watched the aisle instead. Around 3:30, the conductor came through to check tickets. I hesitated, then asked if a man in a gray hoodie had moved to another car. She frowned. "You mean the guy with no ticket?" My chest tightened. "He didn't have a ticket?" "No," she said. "He was supposed to get off 2 stops ago. Said he was confused. I told him to wait here." "Where is he now?" She scanned the car, her expression changing. "He shouldn't be." She radioed for assistance. The train slowed slightly but didn't stop. At the next station, 2 transit police boarded, their boots loud in the quiet car. They spoke in low voices with the conductor, then walked through each car methodically. As they searched, I felt an unexpected sense of relief, like the presence of uniforms alone could keep things under control. Eventually, one of the officers came over and asked me to repeat what the man had said. I did, feeling foolish hearing it out loud. The officer nodded once. "You did the right thing telling us." "Did you find him?" I asked. He paused. "No." They escorted me to another car and suggested I sit closer to the staff area for the rest of the ride. I agreed immediately. For the next hour, nothing happened. The train moved through darkness and frost-covered towns. People slept. Life continued. We arrived in Boston just after dawn. Pale light filtered through the windows. Commuters stirred, gathered bags, checked phones. Everything felt normal again, almost painfully so. The officers were gone. The conductor gave me a tight smile as I stepped off the train. I didn't think about it much for a few weeks. Then in December, I read a local news article about a man arrested in Vermont after being found hiding inside the maintenance compartment of a train. He'd been riding overnight routes without tickets for months, sleeping under seats, listening. Several passengers had reported being spoken to while half asleep. The article said he knew schedules, knew when staff changed shifts. There was no photo. I stopped taking overnight trains after that. To this day, when I pass through a station late at night, I think about how quiet those cars get, how easy it is to believe you're alone, and how sometimes you aren't. And the only proof is a voice you can't forget, reminding you that people don't hear. Happened in the past, back when I was 29, working a consulting job that required me to move between cities more often than I liked. I lived alone in a small apartment in Atlanta, and my family was on the West Coast, so trips north were always a mix of work and minor dread. That December, I had to get from Atlanta to New York City for a last-minute client meeting. Flights were expensive, and frankly, I liked overnight trains. The slower pace, the ability to lie down, the soft rhythmic clatter of wheels over tracks. It felt comforting, at least at first. I boarded the train around 9:30 p.m. The car was half full, mostly older travelers and a few students heading home for winter break. I found my sleeper compartment, a tiny two-berth setup with a narrow upper bunk and a small window. My companion was supposed to be another traveler, but when I arrived, the lower bunk was empty. The conductor told me someone might join later. No problem, I thought. I unpacked, set my bag on the rack, and tried to settle in with a book. At first, everything was normal. The train had its usual squeaks and clanks. I could hear faint conversations in the hallway, a trolley rattling, the occasional cough. Then, about an hour after departure, I started noticing little things that felt off. A shadow moved across the compartment wall when I thought I was alone. The overhead light flickered once, then stabilized. Footsteps echoed outside, slow and deliberate, pausing near my door, even though the hallway was empty when I looked. My stomach tightened, but I shrugged it off. Trains make noises, I knew that. By the time I tried to sleep, the unease had settled into my chest like a weight. Around midnight, I heard someone whisper my name. Just my first name, soft, almost carried on the wind of the train's motion. I froze. "Hello?" I whispered back. Silence. The whisper came again, closer this time, from the small gap under my door. I grabbed the flashlight I always kept in my bag and clicked it on. The hallway was empty. The door to my compartment didn't budge when I tested it. It was locked from the outside. I didn't remember locking it, but now it felt like it was locked. I tried to rationalize. Probably someone walking past, playing a prank, or maybe just my mind straining in the darkness. I kept my eyes on the door and tried to read, but every clack of the train wheels sounded louder, sharper. I thought I saw a figure at the window. Another shadow pressed flat against the glass, but when I blinked, it was gone. My chest thudded. I debated going to the conductor, but the thought of leaving my compartment alone, I didn't want to. Hours passed like this. Every noise was magnified, the train's creak, a distant cough, footsteps pacing somewhere far down the car. Around 2:30 a.m., I heard heavy breathing just outside my compartment. Not from the hallway, but somehow right at my door. I held my breath. The knob rattled once. My flashlight beam caught movement in the narrow slit under the door. A hand? I wasn't sure. I backed away toward the window, grabbed my backpack, and dialed 911. The call didn't connect. No signal, obviously, but it felt like someone or something was waiting for me to panic. The breathing stopped abruptly, replaced by silence, then a soft knock. 3 slow, deliberate taps. I whispered, "Who's there?" No answer. I fumbled to reach the emergency phone on the wall outside the car. The second I touched it, the knock stopped. I felt watched. I don't know how long I stood there, flashlight trembling in my hand, ears straining. Eventually, I heard the voice of the conductor calling down the hall. Relief hit me in waves. I opened the door, nearly falling out. He was just walking past, checking on passengers. I told him what I'd heard. He nodded slowly, looking uncomfortable, and said, "Night trains can play tricks on you, especially when it's quiet and late. We'll check the cars." I followed him as he walked down the aisle, but no one was there. Nothing in the compartments. No footprints, no signs anyone had been where I said. Just the usual shadows, the faint whine of the train, and the low hum of electricity. By the time New York City arrived, the sun was just beginning to rise. I left the train with my bag in one hand and my heart still racing. I told myself it was nothing, that I'd imagined everything. Yet, the more I replayed it, the less it made sense. That hand under the door, the whisper of my name, the precise timing of the knocks. Weeks later, I called the train line to report it. They were polite, made a note, but insisted there were no other reports of strange occurrences on that journey. No other passengers remembered anything unusual. I haven't taken that overnight train since. I still travel frequently, and I still ride trains sometimes, but I always choose a car that's crowded, lights on, and near staff. Every time I hear a train at night now, I think about that journey. I sometimes wake in the dark, feeling a presence just beyond the edge of my vision, like something waiting for the quiet moments when I think I'm safe. I'll never know if it was a prank, an intruder, or something else entirely. And part of me doesn't want to. My name is Daniel. I was 27 the winter this happened, working a contract IT job that had me traveling between cities more than I liked. This particular trip was nothing special on paper. An overnight train from Chicago to New York, late December, the kind of journey I'd done dozens of times before. Flying felt wasteful for such a short distance, and I actually preferred trains at night. Fewer people, less noise. I could sleep and wake up already there. I remember calling my sister before boarding, joking about how I'd probably miss Christmas dinner because of work again. She told me to text when I arrived. I said I would. I didn't. The station was busy in that dull, end-of-day way. People dragging suitcases, the smell of coffee and cold metal. My carriage was near the back. Coach C. When I stepped inside, the warmth hit me immediately, fogging my glasses. Most of the seats were empty. A few commuters slumped near the windows, coats still on, heads tilted back. It was almost comforting. I stowed my bag overhead and sat by the aisle. Across from me, a man about my age sat perfectly upright, hands folded in his lap. He didn't look at his phone. He didn't look at anything. His eyes were open, fixed on the seat back in front of him. I noticed it, thought it was odd, then forgot about it. The train pulled out just after midnight. The lights dimmed automatically, leaving that soft yellow glow meant to encourage sleep. The rhythmic clatter of the tracks settled in. One by one, the other passengers dozed off. I put in my earbuds but didn't play anything yet. I liked the sound of trains at night. About 20 minutes in, I became aware of a faint tapping. It wasn't loud, more like someone gently knocking on plastic. I pulled out one earbud and listened. Tap, pause, tap, tap. It seemed to come from somewhere behind me. I waited for it to stop. It didn't. I turned slightly and glanced down the aisle. Most people were asleep. The man across from me hadn't moved. His posture was identical, like he'd been arranged that way. The tapping stopped. I exhaled, a little embarrassed at myself, and leaned back. That's when I felt it. The subtle, unmistakable sensation of being watched. Not glanced at, watched. Slowly, I looked up. The man across from me was staring directly at my face. Not aggressively, not angrily. Just staring. His eyes were wide, unblinking. For a moment, I wondered if he was even aware of it. "Sorry," I said quietly, mostly out of instinct. He didn't respond. I held his gaze for a second longer than felt comfortable, then looked away, pretending to check my phone. I told myself not to be rude. Some people just zone out. Some people are strange. But when I glanced back a minute later, he was still looking at me. The rest of the carriage had gone very still. Even the train noise felt muted, like cotton had been pressed into my ears. I could hear my own breathing. Inhale. Exhale. Too loud. I stood up, needing an excuse to move. "I'm just going to grab some water," I muttered, though no one asked. As I stepped into the aisle, the man's head turned slowly, tracking me. His body stayed perfectly still. I walked toward the vestibule, my heart beating faster with each step. The tapping started again as soon as I passed his seat. Tap, tap, tap. In the space between carriages, I leaned against the wall and tried to calm myself. It was ridiculous. I was a grown man on a public train. Nothing was happening. That's when I noticed the reflection in the glass. Behind me, in the door window, the man was standing at the end of the aisle, watching me. I spun around. He was closer than I expected. Too close. I hadn't heard him walk. His face was blank, mouth slightly open as if he'd been about to speak and decided not to. "Can I help you?" I asked. He tilted his head just a fraction. Then, in a voice so quiet I almost missed it, he said, "You weren't supposed to wake up yet." My skin prickled. "What?" I said. The train lurched slightly as it sped through open countryside. The lights flickered. When they steadied, he was still there, still staring. "I'm going to my seat," I said, forcing my voice to stay level. I stepped past him. He didn't move out of the way, but he didn't block me either. As I passed, I caught a smell. Stale, metallic like old coins. Back at my seat, I sat down and gripped my phone. I typed a text to my sister. "Still on train. Something's weird." I didn't send it. I didn't want to sound dramatic. The man returned to his seat across from me. He sat exactly as before, hands folded, eyes forward. Minutes passed, then longer. No tapping, no movement. The silence grew heavier, pressing down on my ears. I realized no one else was stirring. No coughing, no snoring, nothing. I stood again, this time heading toward the front of the carriage. I needed staff. I needed someone else awake. Halfway down the aisle, I heard a whisper, not from the man, but from behind me. "Daniel." I froze. No one on the train knew my name. I turned slowly. The man was standing again, but now his mouth was moving, silently forming words. I couldn't hear them over the rushing in my ears. He took one step toward me. That's when I ran. I burst into the next carriage, shouting for help. A conductor emerged from a small compartment, startled. I babbled something about a man following me, about him knowing my name. The conductor frowned, calm but alert, and asked me to point him out. We went back together. The seat across from mine was empty. So was the aisle. So was the entire carriage. The conductor checked the doors, the toilets, the vestibule. Nothing. He told me maybe I'd had a bad dream. I insisted I'd been awake. He radioed ahead anyway. At the next stop, an unscheduled one apparently, 2 transit police officers boarded. They asked me to describe the man. As I spoke, I noticed something on the floor beneath the seat across from mine. A single coin. Old. Darkened with age. The officers exchanged a look I couldn't read. One of them picked it up with a gloved hand and slipped it into an evidence bag without comment. They escorted me to sit near the staff area for the rest of the journey. I didn't sleep. Every time the lights flickered, I expected to see him standing at the end of the carriage. When we arrived in New York at dawn, the officers walked me onto the platform and told me I could go. No report. No explanation. As I stepped away, one of them said quietly, "If you hear tapping again on trains, don't look." I still take trains for work. I have to. But I don't sleep on overnight journeys anymore. And sometimes, when the carriage goes quiet and the lights dim just a little too much, I hear tapping beneath my seat. Slow, patient, waiting for me to close my eyes again.